everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, delighted to be talking with someone who has a much cooler beard than I have, much cooler beard. And this is writer Rich Douek. Rich, thank you for jumping in, joining, and talking comics and writing with me for a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A
Happy.
pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, I know you for Batman, Brave and the Bold, of course.
Hmm.
You've written in that universe A Phone Call Away, Heart Piercer, which is one of my nicknames, Godzilla, which is another one of my nicknames, and probably my favorite, which is Sea of Sorrow as well. So some really nice, wide-reaching and wide-ranging work that you've done.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing comics for about 10 years now. I
Mhm.
think started, well, actually like kind of longer than that if you count like the time when I was like kind of learning and self-publishing and stuff like that. But my first series ever was published in 2016. It was Gutter Magic from IDW
Mhm.
and yeah, and then kind of just went from there.
Yeah, oh, very cool. And you've gotten to play in some very interesting sandboxes. Uh,
Mhm.
what inspires you to write and create stories?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've like been writing. I mean, not well, but when I was like 12 years old and stuff like that. I think I kind of like in a weird way got into it through like playing like D&D and stuff like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I would like look at all these books that were almost like kind of like a toolbox to like build a world with, like there were some books that kind of gave you the whole like, okay, well, this is the castle and this is the king of the kingdom and these are the lineage of their horses and like all that stuff. But then there were other books like where it was like these are just a bunch of monsters or these are just a bunch of, magic items and things like that. And they were just sort of like you could kind of put all those together to create an adventure, to create a world, create stuff like that. And that really appealed to me. And then um just being a fan of um science fiction and comic books and stuff like that, I think that was just sort of like the next natural progression for me was um, you know, kind of like taking a stab at building these like engaging worlds like all by myself and seeing if people respond to them, and luckily they have. So
Yeah. Oh,
so yeah, I think it was just kind of like just like for me it's like almost the same impulse as like a kid playing with like a giant Lego set, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
let me like I have all these things and I want to build something cool and like make my own like little like story with it. But yeah, like there's just for me like a joy in writing and a joy in creating that like really doesn't compare to like anything else.
Yeah. I was just talking with a friend of mine yesterday about the joy of action figures and how you could kind of
Hmm.
create your own stories and things like that. So it's cool how fandom and toys, Legos, anything like that kind of helps you start
Yeah.
to envision a little bit.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword though, because I feel like nowadays like toys are so much cooler than like when I was a kid, just in terms of the detail and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that. But like most of them just sort of sit in their boxes because the collector doesn't want to, damage the value of it and stuff. Because like I know if like I was like 5 years old or whatever, I'd be like, taking that super realistic Spider-Man and smashing him against Venom and stuff like
Oh
that.
yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to be willing to do that with your toys, by all
Yes.
means. Yeah. If you were to go back to 12-year-old you or 10 years ago you, is there any writing advice you would give yourself?
Um, yeah, I think when I started, um, not so much when I started comics, but when I really decided I wanted to write, I think I was very focused on like writing like some great epic like fantasy novel or like um I don't know, like a science fiction book or something, but just something like I had in my head I was gonna like write the next like Dune or Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Hmm.
So I think like one thing I learned when I started writing comics was just like the how helpful it was to uh finish things. So like
Yeah.
to work shorter, like do a short, even if I was talking comic writing, I might have told myself to get into comics sooner or something, but I think like the ultimate thing would have been just to like start smaller,
Hmm.
tackle like some short stories, um, 5 pages, whatever it was, but just like finish things, you know what I mean? Because I think what was holding me back a lot of years was I would have these kind of like computer files of like, books that would end at like chapter 7 or 8 because I ran out of steam and I didn't really know how to proceed and stuff like that. And then it just got to the point where like even just like looking at it, it's like it feels like a failure and feels like ugh, like I can't believe I blew it, like stuff like that. Whereas like when I have like finished stuff, like even if it's not like perfect, it's still just like you can look at the same files, but just sort of feel like accomplishment. Like, yeah, like I did that. I finished that.
Yeah.
Like like my first comic stories were all like 5 or 6 page scripts and like working with other like working with artists that were also just kind of starting out. So it's not like, it's not like I was working with like Dan Mora or like, you know what I mean? Like somebody who would like, drawing like, but it's like, you know, it was like just sort of seeing it come to life and us like making it together
Hmm.
was just like just a great feeling. Like when that art kind of starts coming into your inbox and you're talking about like, oh, like I like this, I like that,
Hmm.
just kind of
Hmm.
learning like every stage of it. But I don't think I wrote like a full page, like a full issue length script for like about like a year or two, maybe like 2 years.
Yeah.
I was just concentrating on doing shorts, and I'm glad I did because I think like the difference between like comics and prose writing is it's like prose writing like it's all like in like my word file, you know what I mean? So like or so I could write like 1,000 pages, I could write 10 pages, like I'm just investing my time. But like if if I go and if I take that and then put it in a box somewhere, like I'm not really like losing anything money wise. Whereas like a
Hmm.
comic, like, yeah, you can find people to collaborate with where, you're kind of both working for free. But I know like in the beginning, like helpful in getting stuff done was being able to put up some money, invest some money, like give the artist like, like obviously like I'm not gonna be able to pay the kind of page rate that like Marvel can pay or something, but like I can, do something. But like uh it's like investing in it means that
Hmm.
like I don't want to waste it, you know what I mean? Like I've got like kind of like money on the table, so I gotta like so I'm like invested in making sure that it's good, getting um getting the result and also like I wanted to like, put it out there. Like I think, when I start like the very first one, I was just like, I just want to see if I can do it. And if it comes out good, great. If not, I don't know. I never have to like do it again. And it's just like 5 pages, whatever. But like the good part about doing the short stuff was it's like I was investing like smaller amounts of money at a time. So it's like like if I had like gone full bore into like um I don't know, some like 1,000 issue saga of like, the superheroes or whatever that I had like swirling around in my head. And I'm new at this and I'm making mistakes and it's not great. I would feel like a jackass for like putting all that money into something that like where like I didn't know what I was doing. So like doing the shorts let me kind of like, even though I was putting money into them, it was like in manageable chunks. So I was kind of like being able to like stumble and not feel like oh God, like I just went into like a massive amount of credit card debt for something that I can't even publish. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're creating, are there particular rituals or things that you do to sort of get inspiration as you go?
Um, yeah, I mean like every new story is kind of like it's like a puzzle, like in a way, and the
Hmm.
pieces don't always really fit in the beginning. So if an idea strikes me, I'll try to take some notes and stuff, and then I just sort of like let it all kind of like jumble around up here like a kid's popcorn mower, like stuff just like bounces around and
Yeah.
collides into other thoughts and things like that. And then when I'm ready to like start like outlining or pitching or something, then I'll like start writing it down. But I try not to like have too much set in stone. Like
Hmm.
I like to just sort of because things occur to me, you know what I mean? Even like at every stage, like when I'm outlining, when I'm scripting, it's like I might have an idea as I'm scripting that like completely changes the outline. And it's like for me, it's better to like like whatever's going to make the story better. Like and generally like kind of sticking to the outline doesn't always like hardly ever makes a story better. Like usually it's like I almost compare it to like when I'm doing like the outline, it's like I'm kind of like plotting the journey like on a map or something, and then when I'm actually writing it, I'm actually like walking through it. So it's like so maybe like I'll be like, oh no, there's a tree in this road. That road looks clear, so I'm gonna go that way,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
it's not on my map, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a kind of story you were talking about wanting to do kind of an epic fantasy like Dune style? Is there a kind of story that you've not done that at this stage you'd like to try?
Um, yeah, I mean there's quite a few, you know what I mean? Um,
Hmm.
because like again, like I have a lot of ideas and I think like that's another thing that's different from like when I was first starting out. It's like I feel like a lot of people when they first starting out, and I'm including myself in this, it's like you really hold on to like your ideas because it's like you're kind of afraid that like that's the only good one you're ever gonna have.
Hmm.
But I think like the more you do it, the more you kind of realize that like coming up with ideas is kind of like part of the process. Like it was part of the gig or whatever. I'm never like at a loss for ideas. Like I have a ton of stuff like that I want to do, and like there's some stuff I can do, there's some stuff I can't do. Like I have like a ghostwriter pitch like I would love to do, but it's not really my decision. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like I have it, I would love to do it, but I don't get to control who writes the ghostwriter comic.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's plenty of stories that I have in like various stages that I'm looking to do. Some of them are newer ideas. Some of them are ideas that I've had going back, like trying to pitch in like various ways for years and years. Um, there's one that there's one that I want to do that's like it's kind of like set in the afterlife.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas like the afterlife as envisioned as like this kind of like wild city that's like, kind of made up of like um all the different like myths that we've had like over the years of the afterlife and human psychology and stuff like that. And that was like an idea that I had like I think maybe like 10 years ago or something, and it just was never right
Hmm.
for anyone. But I started kind of like throwing out like the story that I had in mind, but kind of keeping the setting with like a new story. And now I'm starting to uh, send it out again and see, if people would be into it.
I love that behind the scenes process of like there's a
Yeah.
perseverance to it. There's a belief in the
Yeah.
story and reworking and sending it out there and putting it out there again. I admire that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like, part of doing it like professionally is just sort of, um, you just sort of always have to assume it's going to be a no, but like you send it out anyway, and
Yeah.
you just keep sending and you keep sending and you keep sending, and you just sort of like, yeah, like you like not that you would like sign like a crappy deal, you know what I mean? Like if you're working
Hmm.
with a publisher or whatever, but it's like so much of it is just persevering until you find a way to get it out there, whether it's like with a traditional publisher or with like Kickstarter or whatever it is. It's like I think like a really big part of like um sort of like being able to make this like a career, and I'm not even like I have like a couple of different careers going at the same time because I don't make enough money off comics, but like like kind of the way to like kind of do it as a career is just sort of like it's like this stuff is getting out there like one way or the other, and it's like if publisher, if you want to jump on this train, great. If you don't, I'll find someone who will, or I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the attitude you have to have.
The storytelling impulse.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking a little while ago about being willing to get your action figures out of the box and play with them and
Yeah.
smash them up a little bit. And it brings to mind like working with these characters like Godzilla or Victor Zaz or whoever the character happens to be. Any particular things that you keep in mind when you're working in a shared universe like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's like, I think you can kind of do anything you want, but you sort of have to be aware that like whatever you choose is like gonna have consequences because there are like there's not only like this like long history of like creators working with these properties. It's like there's also along like fans who are like really invested in it. So it's like,
Mhm.
you know, um you want to I think you kind of want to like um do your research like as much as you can, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
really like read the story as it came before, and um whether you kind of like want to use that stuff or not, you just sort of like need to be aware of it, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like because like I think you'll get a lot of things where like um people are like, oh well, like you don't understand this character, or like this is like dishonoring everything that came before. And it's like you know sometimes you just want to try something new, like a new
Yeah.
take. You're not necessarily dishonoring what came before. It's just you're just saying like, well, like we've like seen this before, and I want to do something you haven't seen before.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like I think like for me, like for a long time, I had no idea what I would do for a Batman story, like if asked. Because
Mhm.
I was just like, what are you gonna say about Batman that hasn't been said like, 500 times by like, 500 more talented writers than me. It's like you're talking about a character with like, you know, like an unbroken like 75, 80 years of storytelling, you
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
And he's been through like very serious periods, he's been through goofy periods, like the Silver Age and stuff. So it's like, Batman's a very versatile character, but it's like there's enough Batman out there that like it's going to be really hard to do like a completely original Batman story,
Right. Right.
so I think one of the things that was like kind of like a light bulb moment for me was in talking to an editor friend of mine. His name's Jamie Rich, and at the time he was the Batman editor. Um, we did a Superman story together, and I was just sort of like talking about this, like just like I'm talking to you. I'm like, like it's kind of hard to think of like something that'll kind of catch people's attention and stuff like that, even like in like a one shot or a short story. And he was like, he told me, he was like, yeah, it's like, you're absolutely right. So it's like, he's like, one thing that I like to tell writers is that it's like, when you're doing like a one shot or when you're doing a short story, it's like, it's like everybody knows like what Batman's deal is. So it's like, you don't
Mhm.
need to like kind of go over that. So what you do is you focus on like other characters. Like, it's like, who's he fighting? Who's he saving? Why is he doing it? And
Mhm. Mhm.
that I think is like, it's almost like Batman's like kind of like the constant and like all the other characters are kind of like the variables. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, like there's been a bunch of like Victor Zsasz stories too, but like I had like a particular take on him that like I wanted to explore. Like I really like just the idea of like his like nihilism and stuff, like being very like, um just very bleak and very, but almost like infectious in a way,
Mhm.
like I was just sort of like, well, how does he look at the world? How does he look at Batman? How does he look at his victims and things like that? And that's kind of how I was approaching the story.
Smart.
Um,
Yeah.
like with Godzilla, it was like it was an anniversary issue. It was like the 50th anniversary of Mechagodzilla. So I really wanted to do something that kind of like honored every version of Mechagodzilla out there, like from the original black and white one all the way up to the more modern versions. I wasn't able to use the one that was in like the American like Godzilla slash Kong universe or whatever, because I guess
Mhm.
a different licensor. But as far as like all the Japanese films, like I was, had access, like, or was like had kind of like leeway to do all that stuff. But those are all kind of like in the movies, they're all different continuities. So it's like they don't really tie together. So I was like, so what I came up with was, well, maybe it's like a scientist who created Mechagodzilla and has been like iterating it like over the years. So
Mhm.
like the story structure is almost like similar to like Citizen Kane. It's like this reporter is like going around like interviewing people about this great scientist who has been fighting Godzilla for 50 years with his inventions and stuff. And that's how I was able to use like all the different versions of Mecha Godzilla. But like I rewatched the films. I was like, reading the stories that had been published in comics like before featuring Mechagodzilla and stuff like that. So, again, it's just like researching and kind of getting a handle on like what I wanted to accomplish with the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like sort of finding that gap or that fit or that question that's there
Yeah,
somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, and it's different than like when you're writing your own original stuff because the other thing is just realizing that it doesn't all take place like in a vacuum. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it's like even sorry, even like kind of beyond whatever is happening in that particular issue or story, like unless there's like a reason why, like it also kind of has to make sense with all the other stories being told in that shared universe, like at the same time. And when I say a reason why, it's like maybe it's like a multiverse story, or maybe it's a out of continuity story or whatever it is. But when you're writing something where like, everything you put in Batman has to like, even if it doesn't sync up perfectly, like it's like you have to kind of keep in mind of like what Superman's doing and what Wonder Woman's doing, and because if you have Superman show up to help Batman, you don't want to hear, oh well, he can't because he's halfway across the universe
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
time of the story, so it's just sort of like there's a lot more moving parts that you kind of have to keep track of. But again, it's like, oh no, like I have to think about superheroes and like cool stuff like that. So I don't want it to sound like a complaint. It's just another thing to keep in mind.
Good problems to work through when you're telling a
Exactly.
story. Yeah. Well, anything that you're currently working on that you can talk about, anything that has your creative focus, as well as places where people can go to connect, find out more, follow along. Those could be convention spaces or online spaces or whatever that happens to be.
Yeah, right now I don't the stuff I'm working on right now is not going to be announced for like another month or two, so
Very
can't really
exciting.
talk about it, but I do have stuff I am working on. Just recently did have a few books come out in December. We had Heart Piercer, like you mentioned before.
Mhm.
Also, a trade paperback of Drive Like Hell came out, and I also had a story in Flash Gordon Quarterly from Mad Cave. That was a lot of fun. So those should all be like, easy to find like in your comic shops if you're out there.
Mhm.
Um, Online, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. It's all at R Douek. So my name, RDOUEK. That's also my website is rdouek.com. And if you go there, you can not only kind of like see my work, but you can also sign up for my newsletter. I send out through Substack. I usually send it out like once a month, sometimes twice a month. I try not to be too annoying, flooding people's inboxes with stuff, and I generally only send it out like when I have something to talk about. So sometimes that'll be a new book, other times it'll be something about writing. I have a lot of writers that follow me, so like I'll talk about the business of comics or how writing something or go behind the scenes of like how I was thinking about an upcoming project or just general advice. And then I also just every now and then like I'm sort of like struck by an idea and feel like writing about it. And the newsletter is kind of like the best place to put it. Like I've written like long essays about like AI and comic book marketing and things like that. So, but that's sort of just like if the mood strikes me. So, it's not going to be like the kind of thing where it's like, every Friday, let's check in with Rich and see what's going on. It's just like, when I have something worth saying, like I'll say it.
It's nice. Good to have an outlet for that too.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, I greatly appreciate the time and conversation. Certainly glad to have you back anytime. Have we missed anything that you want to make sure to mention before we close out?
No. I'll keep you in the loop when those new things are coming out. Hopefully, I'll be able to announce them in the next couple of months. And I'd love to come back and talk about them. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sounds great. Sounds great. It is a continued
yeah.
invitation, so glad to talk anytime and many thanks again.
Yeah. Awesome.